Our module 5 is based on chapter 9 in the textbook. Um, and of course, beside the textbook, I always bring other consideration in so that, or other theories, uh, other topics in so that we can learn more, right? Or learn more effectively. See, I only made a list over there, and it's just a conceptual discussion. I do not ask you to do any calculation in that topic, so that's why I only left that as a list of topics that you need to read through, so that you have the intuition of what it is. I wish I had more time so that I can discuss that in more details, but uh, I wish I had more time. Every day I'm under that time pressure. Okay, so please understand me. So today we move on to module 5 about quality management. It is another important dimension of any business, right? Beside the quantities that we normally talk about, how many units that we produce per day, per month, or per year, now we talk about how good it is, right? But of course, how good it is a little bit subjective. It is mainly based on chapter 9 and some topics, some other things that I bring in this module 5. Okay, so in terms of the progress, then in module 1, we did overview of operations management. In module 2, we try to make more sense about the future, so we do forecasting. Module 3 and 4 are about the quantity that we produce in our process, right? In module 3, we talk about the 3 fundamental metrics. We tie them together by the Little's law. In module 4, we go deeper inside the process, right? So that we can measure the utilization, implied utilization, so that we can make our decisions accordingly to make it more efficient. So 3 and 4 are going to focus on the quantity aspect of our business. And in module 5, we focus on the quality, another dimension of our business, right? So what is, by the way, in terms of the outline, we have something like this: quality management, cost of quality, SPC, Six Sigma, performance analysis, assignable causes, robust processes, binary outcomes, right? There are many big topics here. But because I would like to stay with our part 2 questions, so I do not follow this exact order, okay? I might alter the order a little bit during our lectures. Because all of you people are here, I would like to say right away that we have the midterm next Wednesday. Okay, so today I will post the study guides for you to have some more concrete to prepare for the exam. The homework 2, part 2, we will not be able to cover everything before the midterm. So next Monday, only one question is due. Next Tuesday, another question, 1 or 2 are due. And then on Wednesday, we have the exam, okay? So yeah, please look for the study guide that I will post today. All right, so let's continue with our module 5. Here's a leading concept about product quality, right? So what is product quality? There are 2 perspectives that we look at it. Karina, there are 2 types of questions. The first 10 questions are multiple choice questions. Question 11 through 14 are problem-solving questions. Okay. Yeah, so I will put that in more details in the study guide. Yes, Christopher, everything is on Canvas. Nothing is on Connect. Connect is only for the homework assignments, part 1, okay? And for the ebook, where you actually read the materials. Everything else is on Canvas, right? Exam it on Canvas. All of the submission, project, things like that are also on Canvas. All right, so when we talk about product quality, then there are 2 perspectives for us to look at that product quality. From the customer's perspective, if a product is of good quality, if it meets or exceeds customer expectation, right? Then we call that as a good product for the customer, because that's from their perspective. From the producer perspective, or from us, right? If we need to produce something, then the product is only good if it conforms to our own design specification, right? When you produce ice cream, for example, you already design it to be the 2% sugar content or 5% sugar content. What do you think the best? Okay. So when we actually produce the ice cream, then we try to make sure that the sugar content stays to the 2% or to the 5%, right? So we call that as conform to, conformance. Follow, stay true to the design specification. All right, so with that, I would like to go to the whiteboard, and then we organize our discussion. Okay, so we are moving to module 5 today. By the way, whatever you do not see clear inside the slide, please feel free to talk to me during my office hours. Then I will have more time to clarify that for you. All right, so in module 5, we talk about quality management. And the first thing is what quality is, right? So we look at the product quality from two perspectives. First of all, from the customer's perspective, with the angle, because different people will care different things, care about different things. So from the customer perspective, we talk about meet or exceed customer expectation, right? So if I ask you what is a good quality, then each one of you will answer me differently, because quality is some kind of subjective or personal um, uh, matter, right? So different people will think about quality differently. But I think that by talking about the expectations, then possibly many people will agree on. So this definition is kind of is quite general for us to kind of work on. Okay. So again, a good or a product or service or a product in general is of good quality if it meets or exceeds the customer expectations, right? So if the customer expectation is this much, and if we meet or go even beyond it, then the customer will be happy. Basically, they will buy more of our products. Right? So that's the first perspective. The second is the producer perspective. So from the producer perspective, then the units are good if they conform to the desired specification. Right? Before we produce anything, we always design it to be that way, design it to be that way. If a car, it has to have that functionality. If it is a hotel service, then these are the things that we want the hotel service to be, right? So, and if the units actually follow the design specification, then we deem that internally the units are good. Of course, the units eventually go out to the customers. And the ultimate vote, the ultimate judgment here is from the customer, right? If they like it, they buy it. If they don't like it, they will not buy it, and then we will not be able to generate revenues from what we produce. So between the two perspectives, right? And clearly, the ultimate goal is the customer from the customer perspective, right? So we ultimately we want to meet or exceed the customer expectation. So that's the goal at the end. Okay, so the next question is, why do we have to talk about product quality? Right. So next we talk about importance of quality. So the importance, let me fix this a little bit. Then the first thing is, without good quality, we might not survive. So it is very crucial for business survival. Okay, about 4 years ago, Samsung announced actually Samsung released a new generation of Samsung Note, right? But the rollout got a big problem. Some batteries are overcharged, they got too hot, they caught fire, they damaged the device, and potentially they cause hazardous situation for the customers, right? So that time, Samsung had to recall all the sold units back because they don't want to deal with all of the litigation, with all of the damages, because it is fire. Fire can damage the whole house, right? Things like that. So they recall the Samsung Notes, and I even remember I heard something like they discontinue the Samsung Notes. But of course, at that time, I also thought that it is a great product. Maybe if they fix the battery problem, then they can back it up again, right? And actually, after 2 years or so, they back it up. They brought up they brought the Samsung Note back, and now it is a viable product right now. Right, it is a good product that can is a good contender to the Apple devices. All right, so if we do not have good quality, right? Good quality here is of many aspects. It's not just about one thing. It is the overall performance of the products. If it is not good, then we might cause damages, and then we have to discontinue the product line. Some companies they even have to go out of the market altogether because there are so much damages, and then they have to compensate millions or billions of dollars, and they cannot survive, right? Or let me give you another example about this. About a month ago, Johnson and Johnson declared that they will discontinue the baby powder products because it has some chemicals that might cause cancer, right? So no one wants to deal with that kind of situation, so they discontinue the product line, right? So it's about business survival right there. If quality is not good, then there will be some very bad effects to the business. Okay, so first of all, we need good quality for survival. Okay, the second thing is if we have good quality, then we will have goodwill from our customer, right? So people are happier about the product. They support your product. They support your company as a whole. The image of the company is good, and it's very easy. It's much easier for you to grow your business, right? So goodwill and support from the government. I mean, from the customers.
What is goodwill?
Goodwill, like you like the product. The thing is, it's a good product that will cater to our needs, right? So you have good thinking about the product. Think about it that way. Then we call it as a goodwill. So we have goodwill and support from the customers. They even give you free advertisement. Right? So every day we look at we watch a lot of commercials. Do we buy products from the commercials? Possibly we have not bought that much from the commercials, right? But if your family members, if your relatives, your friends tell you that you should try this product, you try that product because it's so good, then there's a much higher chance that you will buy or try that product, right? So in this case, if we have goodwill, good thinking from the customer about your product, they support your product, they support your company, they have a good image about your company, then they will advertise their products to the family members, to the friends, things like that, right? So with good quality, then it's easier for you to grow the client base, generate more revenue, expand, and do more, right? So that's a very important thing that will come if we have good quality product. Okay. First, we need to survive, and then now, if we have a ever growing base of customers, right, then we can generate more revenue over time. So the next impact of good quality is we're gonna have better competitiveness. So if we have better competitiveness, then we will be able to sell more and we generate more revenue, right? And Apple is a good example about it. So they can sell more units than the competitors, right? Even though they charge at a higher price than the competitors, but then people still buy more Apple devices than other competitors. So you sell more, you charge at a higher price per unit more, and then you generate a lot of revenue. So that's because of that competitiveness. With the better quality, people will stay loyal to your brand, stay loyal to your product, even though it's more expensive than other things. But people are willing to pay for that because they have a goodwill, they have a good image about the product, good impression about the product and the company. So competitiveness also bring about more revenue. Okay, another good impact about good quality is you would have fewer returns and upsets, right? So if we have fewer returns, we don't have to deal with the reverse logistics. And the upsets about our products, the upsets about our services, right? So if the customer have upsets, you have to remedy the situation, you have to compensate for the damages, you have to exchange things, right? That will increase the cost and hurt our profit margin. So we don't want any of that. So quality is one way for us to deal with to lower the number of returns and the upsets. And internally, we can also reduce the number of defects. Right? So for the same number of inputs, the same amount, the same quantity of input, we can crank out more output because we have fewer defects. So that will increase our productivity. Bring down the cost. And you know what? All of these, right, boils down to more profit. If we have a non-profit organization, then we're going to have more surpluses. So with more surpluses, then you can do more charity. we can compensate more to the workers, right? I mean, higher salaries and higher pay for the workers. So everybody will be happy. And if it is a government agency, if the quality of the product is higher, then they will have more business. The government will give them more budget, right? Uh, Things like that. So that's a good thing to happen. Okay. So first of all, we try to have good quality because we need to survive, and then we need to grow. We need to increase revenue. We need to cut down the cost, and that will bring us to have more profit and more services. So as a manager, we always strive for those, and quality is one good way to do it. So that's the importance of quality. And now let's talk about quality management, the title of this module 5, right? So what is quality management? Quality management means that we put out there policies, methods, and procedures, right? So we put out we just gotta put out the policies, come up with policies, come up with a new method, put out new procedures, right? Things like that. So policy method and procedures so that we can internally, we can conform to the desired specification. Or desired specs. And externally, we try to meet or even exceed customer expectation. Right? Internally first, but at the end, the units, the products will reach out to the customer. So ultimately, we want to meet or exceed the customer expectation. Right? So it's about policy, methods, and procedures that we need to put out there to internally conforms, and then externally to meet or exceed customer expectation. All right. So that is a concept, the definition of quality management. We just talk about the quality of the product, but in the reality, there's another concept called the total quality management. So this is a broader concept than just quality of product. This time around, we talk about total quality. So not only about the quality of the product, right, but the quality of everything else that we do. So total quality management, or TQM. TQM has 3 principles. The first principle is called the focus on the customers and other stakeholders. Okay, of course, customer is the most important, or among the most important stakeholders. So we single that out. So customer is a very important stakeholder. And then now we talk about other stakeholders too, because beside the people who sell the products to, which are the customers, right? Who are the customer, right? But we also have to care about other parties that might be impacted by our business, and they are the stakeholders. So as a manager, we need to be clear about this, okay? So that whatever we do, we try to please not only the customers, but also the stakeholders. So I would like to ask the whole class, who can be the stakeholder of a company beside the customers? The customer is one stakeholder, one of the key or the key, right, stakeholder. But beside the customer, who else can be the stakeholder of the company? Please feel free to share. So in workers, fill-in employees, yeah, so employees and workers are the same. And Christopher got investors. Okay, so I also see Matthew and fill-in also employees, right? Okay, see shareholders and then Sophia suppliers. Good. So let me discuss a little bit. So if you talk about investors and shareholders, they are on the same league, right? They are the investors in the company, the share owners or the investors because they put their own money, or the founder who actually chip in the money, right? They put out the money for the company to be founded, to exist, and then to operate, right? Without them, then the company will not exist anymore. So what do? We have to cater to them, right? So a lot of the managers, they will have to try to maximize the share value or the value of the company because that will benefit the investors or the share owners, including them, because some of the stock that they own is from the company. Okay. Every So another idea here is employees, right? The employees, of course, is one of the the most important stakeholder of the company because they got the salary, they got all of the working condition from the company, right? So we have to care about the employees in terms of compensation, in terms of working condition, all of the things that benefit them. Right? We try to mitigate all of the harmful damages or impacts on the customers, right? On the workers because of the chemicals, because of a lot of things that might happen. So that's the focus on the customers and stakeholders. Right. By the way, we're not done with the stakeholders yet. And if you have anything, I see from Sophia suppliers. Internal and external. That's correct, Sophia. Right. We try to internally we try to follow our own design, and externally we have to please the customers. Right. So the suppliers and the distributors, they are your partners, right? Without them, we cannot be successful. So to be successful, you have to have good partners, a network of good partners. So that we can have a smooth operation inside our company. And at the same time, whatever we do, we also either benefit them or cause some disruption to the partners, right? So we have to also please them so that they work with us, so that we can have a smooth business flow. Okay, so who else can be the stakeholder? All right, so we talk about of course, the customers. That's the first one, and then employees, and then investors and share owners, right? So shareholders. Who else can be the stakeholders? Community. That is correct, right? So Philip got an idea about community. And creditors. Oh, that's another important thing here too, Sophia. A lot of the companies, they run on credit. They have to go to the bank, borrow the money, buy the merchandise, sell the merchandise, and pay buying the money, right? So without the creditors, you have a lot of disruption. Sometimes you have to pause your operation if you do not have the lenders that who are willing to back you up, right? Um, so Matthew, anyone, but we need to be conscious because If we do not identify the specific people, right, then we will not be able to cater to them. So that's the idea about the community. So let me take that as an example, and then we think more about how to have a specific kind of stakeholder, so that we know what to do. All right. So I guess that many of you already tried the sriracha hot sauce or sriracha hot paste or hot sauce, right? Chili sauce. Okay, it's hot. Okay, but think about the production process. When you produce something like that, what happens to the air? The air should be very strong and pungent, and that's not good for the community at all. So sriracha is made by wheat from food, and they have the plant in the Glendale area or some in Southern California. So the community, the people around the plant complain a lot about all of the bad smell out of that plant, right? And if they do not do anything about it, they will sue them and they will claim for damages and things like that, right? And then the city or the county even have to shut down the operation of the company. So eventually, we found install a new air filter system, so that the new system can filter out the bad smell, right? Only the fresh air to be put back into the environment. So, right, the community is another stakeholder right there, and if we do not pay attention to that specific community, that stakeholder, then they might fight back, and we will have some kind of disruption, right? Another example about the community. Okay, so for example, if Walmart announce that they will put a new superstore in that neighborhood, will people happy or not happy? Some of them will be happy. Some of them will not be happy. The people who are happy because they will have more convenient shopping, right? But for those who wants like quiet environment, they don't want traffic, they don't want more pollution, then they don't want the superstore right there, right? Together with that, the whole host of things that might go with the store, and people are not happy about it, right? So as a manager, we have to be conscious about who are our customers, who are our stakeholders, so that we have to please them. Otherwise, we might, when they might fight back, then we will have some disruption with our operations. All right. So that's the first principle. The second principle is about process focus with ever learning and improving. Okay, so why we do module 3 and 4? Because all businesses can be considered as processes. So if we look at the businesses from the process angle, then we know what to measure and what to do with the results, right? And that's what we learn a lot in module 3 and module 4. So so the second principle is we look at businesses from the process angle, and try to improve it over time, learning and improving, and that's forever. So think about it. As a person, we can improve ourselves. We can learn more by taking more classes. You go online to take more classes. You do more degrees, right, masters or even more. Then we can improve ourselves personally, right? But here we talk about a company of 1,000 people, even hundreds of thousands of people. How a group can learn and improve themselves forever. So in that case, you have to build up a quality system inside the company. That system is documented so that the knowledge, the best practices can be transferred from one workers to other workers through that training system, right? So you have to have a good training system where you train the workers, all associates, to follow the best practices. And if there's something happen, then we have to learn from it. We have to retrain the workers. We have to revise our documentation, revise our best practices, so that we do not have the problem again. And by doing that, we improve our quality over time, right? So in this case, we talk about total quality management. It is a much broader concept than just product quality, right? Product quality is just about the product. But here we talk about the product, but also all other things that we do during the production and delivery process, right? So that's the second principle. The third one is it asks for participation. And teamwork by everyone. Right? So if everybody chips in to the common good of the company, then over time, as a group, they can learn, they can improve the quality of operations, the quality of the products over time, right? But if somebody doesn't follow the company, they goes against the company, they do not contribute to the common good of the companies, then they might cause damage to the products, quality, they cause damage to the company, right? So we don't want those employees, right? So we want the participation and the contribution by everyone. So these three principles sounds very big. In the reality, how to achieve those, right? So in the reality, they would use the so-called the ISO system or other quality system, not just the ISO. ISO is one of the most popular quality systems that they use. So ISO is International Standardization Organization. It is a non-profit organization based in Switzerland. They do a lot of research on processes in many industries, okay? And then they come up with a list of best practices that the company should follow. So the first thing that companies can do is to go to their website, pay and buy a PDF file. In that PDF file, they lay out what should be the best for this process or best for that company, for that industry, things like that, right? So the companies will base on that as a basic quality system and then build up, fill in all of the details, make tailor to the specificity of the companies, things like that. So based on the ISO system, they have their own quality system, right? And if you are serious, you want to be certified against the ISO standard. So with the ISO certification or certificate, then it's easier for you to sell to many markets, especially markets in the Europe, especially the government. If you want to sell them, to sell their products to them, then you have to have the ISO certificate, right? Because the certificate says that you only follow the best practices during the production process, and the quality should be very reliable, right? Okay, sometimes you have to avoid all of the damages on the environment, right? So the certificate already certify that this is a product that you buy, and behind it, they already try the best to protect the government, to protect the environment, right? So another thing that the customer care about. Okay, so this total quality management is a much broader concept than the product quality concept that we have earlier. But of course, TQM, the total quality management here includes the definition of product quality that we mentioned earlier. All right, so now after we talk about this, now let's go back to this. Quality management means that we try to put out their policies, methods, and procedures so that we can conform to the design specification, so that we can meet or exceed the customer expectation, right? So now what can be the policies, methods, and procedures that we can use? Then the first model, the first thing that we learn next about the is called the gap model. The gap model is not in our textbook. I bring that from another textbook so that we can learn more. And this topic is very important. So why do we call it as a gap model? Because there are 5 major areas or major gaps or areas that quality might fail or quality or possible quality failure. Okay, so there are 5 major areas where quality might fail. So what are they? The first one is called gap number 1. Gap number 1 is the difference between the gap or the difference or the mismatch, right, between customer expectation and management understanding of customer expectation. MGMT stands for management understanding. Right? If the leadership misunderstand customer expectation, guide the whole company in the wrong way, then how can the company be successful? Right? They do not produce the products that that customer wants to buy, or they do not put in the features that the customer wants to buy. Then, in terms of sales, it's going to be poor. Let me give you one specific example about this. I would like to ask the whole class, have you heard about a company called Research in Motion? RIM. Have you ever heard about it? Research in Motion. No, right? Okay. I guess most of us would never hear about it. Good, because you know what? Research in Motion is a company, the designer, the distributor, the producer, the distributor of the BlackBerry devices. BlackBerry devices are the palm-sized mobile device like this, right? With a QWERTY keyboard on it. It's about 15 or 20 years ago. It is the most popular mobile device. It is a cell phone, and then people can do a lot of things on it, including sending emails, things like that. So it is the leading device on the market. And it's very convenient to type in the key on the keyboard, such that people even demo that they can text while putting the device at the back, because with the keys they can feel it, they can easily text without looking at the device. Okay, the device itself is a solid product with great data encryption. All the data traffic went to Canada, so they encrypted it very well. Okay, even U.S. government agencies, they distributed the BlackBerry devices to the workers so that they can have reliable communication between the group. Okay, so the bottom line is Research in Motion was the leader in the mobile device 15 or a little bit more time ago, but nowadays nobody heard about it. Nobody has heard about them anymore, right? Because they are dwindling and dwindling. And the reason is they misunderstood customer expectation. They thought that the QWERTY keyboard devices will be there forever. They are doing good with the sales. Why do they have to do anything different, right? So they go ahead with the QWERTY keyboard device, and they miss the expectation about the touch screen. At the time, the touch screen was revamped by Apple. And then from that time on, screen took up, right? Because with a touch screen now, you can watch movies. We do a lot of multimedia. We can do a lot of apps with a touch screen, right? Where the QWERTY keyboard cannot do it. So that's the new expectation, the new wave, the new trend in terms of what's the customer expect the mobile device to be. And then the research motion leadership totally missed that. They did not catch up with the trend or the wave. So the devices were dwindling, right? Over time, they could not sell that much. And then, like 3 years ago, they even announced that they will not produce the Blackberries by themselves. Instead, they hire a company in Malaysia or somewhere in Asia to produce the Blackberries for them. What an irony, right? The leader in the mobile device market does not produce that device anymore because they do not sell that as much. All right, so that's the first gap is right there, right? The wrong thing is right there with the leader versus the customer expectation. So we call that as a gap because that's a mismatch, the difference, right, between that and that. That's gap number one. Now let's talk about gap number two. Gap number two is a mismatch or the difference between the management understandings and the design specification. Okay, even if we understand that the customer now wants the touch screen, but how to design your product is another problem, right? So not only Apple, but many other companies also try to do the touch screen at that time. But of course, the design of other companies, right, will not be that good. They do not have uh, the uh, the the app store to accompany the hardware. So the software is not that good. The touch screen is not that sensitive. So in terms of the design, right, other designs are not as good as Apple. So that's why Apple tried, and other companies are trailing behind. But in the end, right, Samsung has emerged as a good contender, as a serious contender to Apple. And other companies, right, they are still struggle with how to increase their base, customer base. All right. So correct understanding. Then the next thing is you have to have good design to match up, to stay up to the customer expectation, right? So that's another area where quality might fail. If the design is not good, then we will not be able to meet or exceed the customer expectation. Gap number three is about the difference, the mismatch between design specification and implementation. Even if we have good design, but in terms of the actual production process or service delivery process, if we make mistakes, if we put in poor materials, if we do something not good with it, then at the end, the quality of the products will not be deemed as good, right? So that's the difference between the design specification and the implementation. The actual production process do not stay up to the blueprint, then the quality, the product eventually will not meet the customer expectation, right? That's the ultimate goal, and then we do not meet it, we will not be able to sell, we will not be able to expand, right? And that's not good. That's not our intention. when we set up businesses. So that's gap number 3. Gap number 4 is the difference between implementation. The actual production process, the actual delivery process, right? Versus external communication. So we do, if we do good things inside our company, and if we can convey that to the customers, then the customer will value our company more. They will value the products more, right? So let me give you one example about this. In California, we grow a lot of avocados. A regular avocados will sell for about 60 cents per piece, right? But if it is an organic avocados, then you can sell for more because the customer value more the organic avocados, right? So so if we do not put the label on the avocado saying that it is organic, it is locally grown, then people will deem the quality of our product as a regular product. Then there's no way for us to sell it at a higher price, right? But if you put a label on it, that's external communication right there, right? Saying that this is organically grown, then you're gonna sell more and at a higher price than the regular, right? Than if it is a regular without the label. So that's why any big companies, they will have a department called the public relation department. That department is supposed to convey all the good things that you do within the company for the customer to understand. For example, if you do more solar energy, more do renewable energy, right? Then you put a label, a sign somewhere for people to know that on the website, right? So that the customer appreciate your product more. They appreciate what you do, and then they appreciate the company as a whole more, right? So that's gap number 4. We have to know, to be conscious about it. Okay, so gap number 5. Gap number 5 is the mismatch between customer expectation and the perceived quality. Okay, so customer expectation is this, but the perceived quality is lower, much lower. Then there's no way for us to kind of sell much, right? So from time to time, from Hollywood, they will produce a movie, and then they advertise that movie a lot. They pump up the hype about that movie, right? So people form a great expectations about the movie. But when they go to the movie theater and watch out that actual movie, then people are kind of disappointed, or it is a flop, right? Then they will not recommend other people to go, and you lose a lot of revenue by having a big difference between expectation and the perceived quality like that. Right. So these are the 5 major areas where quality might fail. So as a manager, we always have to think about these 5 gaps, right? So that we always do market research to catch up with the new trends. We have to hire somebody who can design the products that catch up with the new waves of innovation. We have to implement the actual production process to stay with the design specification. You have to communicate with the general public, with your customers about the good things that we do. Sometimes you have to mitigate the damages, right? If there's a bad thing that happened. That's gap number 4. And gap number 5, right? You try to stay true to the expectation of the customers, so that over time, you always keep your promises, and then people rely on have a trust in your business, trust in your products, right? Then you can sell more that way. So it's a totally conceptual model. There's no calculation here, but I would think that is a very important concept, right? So I encourage everybody to keep this in mind in your current job, in your future job, so that you can improve the quality of the company. Okay, so that's the gap model. And next up, I would like to move on to another model called the cost of quality model, where we can do some conceptual discussion and where we can do some calculation and think about what to do with it, with the results. All right, so the next topic is called the cost of quality. Or COQ model. And this topic is pertaining to question 22 of the homework part 2. Okay, so what are the costs of quality? So cost of quality are the costs related to quality. Including the cost to avoid the quality problem and the cost to remedy the quality problem, right? So by saying that, now we have a notion of 2 types of costs. The first one is called the good cost, and the second one is a bad cost. In the first group, in the good cost group, we can classify that further into prevention costs. Or later on, we are going to use the acronym as P cost. And the second group of costs is the appraisal cost. Or the A cost. Right? Prevention costs and appraisal costs will help us to avoid the problem down the road. Whereas the bad costs are the costs that we have to do it to remedy the situation, right? So there we can divide that further into the first one is called internal failure cost. Or I cost, right? And another one is called the external failure cost. Or the E cost. Right, so 2 good costs and 2 bad costs. And later on, when we work on the example, and also when you work on question 22 in the homework, then sometimes you're gonna get confused on which one is a prevention cost, appraisal cost, internal failure, or external cost, right? So in that case, please go back to this diagram, and I hope the diagram will help you for your classification. So so cost identification or classification. So to do that, to identify or to classify the cost, we should draw the following picture and keep that in mind. I got confused sometimes, so I have to think hard about it. And I drew this picture, and so now I share that with you. Okay, so we have a process like this, where we produce things and deliver things, right? Not just about production, but also deliver, especially in the service industry. So if we spend money before the actual production process or the delivery process to avoid the problem, then we call that as prevention. Sorry, this is a prevention cost, right? We prevent all the bad things going down the road. So we can make a preventative measure with that, right? So before the actual production process. But if we go inside the actual production process to check things, to inspect things, to see if there's a problem so that we can correct it right away, then it is called appraisal, right? And from time to time, bad things still happen. We have to spend money to fix the problem, fix the machine, things like that. Then we call that as an internal failure cost. And finally, if we deliver the units to the customers, and then they have some upset, they claim some damages, things like that. So we call that as external failure cost, right? So again, we call this as a good cost, P&A cost, because we actively spend that money to avoid the quality problems down the road. But when quality problem happens down the road, we have to incur the cost to fix it, right? So we call these as a bad cost. We have to do it to maintain the quality of the products, right? But then the costs are not wanted, is not desirable. So we call that as the bad cost, right? So there are two types of costs like that. I mean, four types of costs. Let me show you something a little bit more specific in the slide about these types of costs. Okay, let me share that with you. One second, please. Okay, something. All right, so let me share that with you. Okay, so in the slide, right, cost of quality are the costs associated with avoiding poor quality or cost incurred as a result of poor quality, right? Avoiding and fixing. So good costs and bad costs, right? So that's four types of costs, like I mentioned earlier. So what are the prevention costs? Those are the costs to keep non-conforming goods and services from being created and delivered, right? In terms, for example, quality planning costs, process control costs, information system costs, and training and general management costs. So those are the costs to make sure that our goods and services conform to the desired specification. Right? That's the internal look right there. In terms of the appraisal costs, those are the expenses on measurement and analysis of data to detect and correct problems, right? For example, we test the units, we test the parts, we inspect the machinery or inspect the units or the products too. Number two here, instrumental maintenance costs. Number three, process measurement and control costs, right? We collect data and see if there's a problem with the process or not. So all of those are appraisal costs. Remember, appraisal means that we already have to be inside the process, right? P here is before the process. Okay, the third cost is internal failure costs, right? Those are the costs incurred as a result of unsatisfactory quality found before product delivery. So the units are still with us. We have not delivered them yet. And if the cost with them, right, then we call it as an internal failure cost. And like scrapping, rework cost, cost of corrective action, the grading cost, process failures, right? So those are the internal failure costs. And finally, we have the external failure costs. They incur after delivery of poor quality products, like costs due to complaints and remakes, return, recall costs, and guarantee claims, and product liability costs, right? So all of these are called external failure costs. Okay, so as I said earlier, there are 4 types of costs, and we lay them out in that order: P, A, I, and E, right? So actually, they are very pertaining to a rule. Let me show that rule to you. That rule is the 110 and 100 rule. Right? What is that rule? It means the following: if there's a quality failure or mistake, let's call that as a mistake. If there is a mistake at the design stage, it costs only $1 to fix. Right? You just redraw it on the paper, or you revise something on the computer. So generally, it's very cheap, very inexpensive to fix the design mistake, right? But if we have a mistakes or failures during the production process, then generally it's going to cost $10 to fix it, right? So it's much more expensive now to fix. The design is the early stage. If we fix it there, it's very cheap to fix. But if we go further into the production process, and if there is a failure, if there's a mistake or defects over there, then it's going to cost much more to fix. And the mistakes, if there is a mistakes after delivery, right, it's going to cost $100 to fix. Right, you see the number $1, $10, and $100. That's why we call this as a 1, 10, and 100 rule. The further we go into the process and we make the mistake further down the road, then the more expensive it is. So that's why we have to spend money on prevention, so that we do not have the problems later on. We have to spend money on appraisal, so that we don't have problems later on, right? To avoid the problems, or then we don't have to deal with the problems, right? So that's why we the COQ model is very consistent with the 110 and 100 rule. Okay, so for this topic, we're gonna work on one example. Let me show you the example. Let me make a note about that. Okay, so let's. I'm sorry. This 110 and 100 rule is just one part of the big topic of COQ. And now let's talk about the example of this COQ topic. This is a printing business. This is module 5, slide 17. Okay, so they give us a bunch of costs. And then we have to go through it and classify which cost it is. And then we have to do the following. So first of all, we have to do classification. Then we have to draw the Pareto, P-A-R-E-T-O chart. Pareto is an Italian name, right? That's the name of the economist who used these charts the first. So we call it as a Pareto chart. And then the next step is we do interpretation. And give our recommendation. Right, so there are 4 big tasks that we have to do here with the example, and this is very similar to question 25 in our, sorry, question 22 in our part 2 of homework 2. All right, so let me share that with you. Okay, so we have the printing business, and they collected the data from last year, and then they tabulate all the data like this, right? So on the left-hand side, in this table, we see the cost items. And on the right-hand side, we have the dollar amount of the cost, right? So, and again, we're gonna have to do these 4 major activities here. So the cost items are what? They are customer complaint remakes, printing plate revisions, quality improvement projects, gauging the waste, correction of typographical errors, proofreading, quality planning, press downtime, by-the-way waste, checking and inspection, right? So the first task that we have to do here is how to classify these into the 4. It's not about how, but to classify these costs into the 4 types of costs, right? So, for example, customer complaint remakes is what?
External failure.
Okay, good. See, that's external failure because the unit's already delivered. The customer already experienced it. They're not happy with it. They complain back to you, and then you remake it for them, right? So definitely it is customer external failure cost. And then you know what? At the end of the class notes today, I will give you the answer to the classification part. So I encourage you to attempt this example by yourself first, right? And then open the end of the class notes, and then you're going to see the answer. And then we're going to continue our discussion on Wednesday. So I'd like to thank you all, and have a great day, great rest of your day. I will see you back on Wednesday. Thank you.